Colombia, a bolt of lightning strikes a Venezuelan woman during a family outing.
Paramedics ran to the scene, sending the victim to hospital. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Mathay.
And I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Presidents Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Xi Jinping are set to discuss de-escalation in the West Philippine Sea. Philippines and the United States peacefully signed the 123 nuclear energy deal. Rescuers have less than 48 hours to save the workers trapped inside a collapsed tunnel in India. The United States and China are back to direct, open, and clear military communications. And the long-awaited 2023 Game Awards nominees are now out for a vote. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is set to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping to address escalating tensions in the West Philippine Sea.
We will get the view of the Chinese president on what we can do to bring down the temperature, to not escalate the situation in the West Philippine Sea. And we will put all of these together so as we'll be able to strategize for the near future on what the Philippines' role will be, or what is the proper Philippines role in the West Philippine Sea.
This follows a discussion with the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris on the sidelines of the 30th APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, who sought the Philippines' latest assessment of the situation in the disputed waters. President Marcos emphasized that the fundamental mission of the country is to maintain the peace and not escalate tensions with Beijing. Marcos and Harris highlighted the robustness of U.S.-Philippine ties and their shared commitment to upholding international rules, particularly in light of China's increased aggression in the region. The Department of Foreign Affairs continues to call on Beijing to dismantle their illegal structures and halt reclamation activities in the West Philippine Sea.
The Philippines and the United States have officially inked a groundbreaking deal allowing Washington to supply Manila with nuclear technology and materials. This agreement is a significant step for Manila, which is exploring nuclear power as a means to decarbonize and enhance energy independence. Negotiations for the 123 Energy Agreement commenced in November 2022, reflecting President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s vision of incorporating nuclear energy into the Philippines' energy portfolio. The U.S. Embassy in Manila emphasized that this agreement also aims to boost collaboration on clean energy security, reinforcing the alliance between the two nations. President Marcos sees nuclear power as a crucial alternative for baseload power, enabling the phased retirement of coal plants. This strategic move aligns with the nation's climate goals and bolsters energy security, addressing concerns related to fluctuating global oil prices, seasonal power outages, and high electricity rates.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, has opted to keep its policy rates unchanged, citing a decline in inflation during October. During its policy meeting, the Monetary Board kept the benchmark interest rate at 6.5%, with the overnight deposit rate and lending of facilities rates remaining steady at 6.7%. BSP Deputy Governor Francisco Agila Jr. explained that maintaining these rates will allow the effects of previous tightening measures to permeate through the economy. He noted that recent projections indicate a moderation in the inflation outlook over the policy horizon. Despite the easing inflation, BSP Governor Eli Remolona Jr. emphasized that challenges persist, cautioning that the Philippines has not completely overcome its economic challenges. The BSP will remain vigilant and committed to evaluating how both businesses and households respond to the prevailing monetary policy conditions.
House Majority Leader Manuel Jose Dalipe dismissed the impeachment plot against Vice President Sara Duterte, describing it as fake news. He disclosed that such talks are mere attempts to sow discord between Duterte and House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Dalipe added that if Duterte has not committed any wrongdoing, there is no reason for concern about it. Dalipe dismissed the claims that Romualdez was trying to discredit Duterte due to potential competition in the 2028 national elections. Meanwhile, Deputy Majority Leader for Communications Representative Erwin Tulfo also denied the plot for the Vice President's impeachment. Tulfo defended that he reached out to Romualdez himself and confirmed that there was no substance to the alleged impeachment claims.
The United States is set to forge a new partnership with the Philippine government to foster the growth of its semiconductor industry. This collaboration, initiated by the U.S. State Department, aims to diversify the global semiconductor ecosystem through the International Technology Security and Innovation Fund. The first phase of this partnership involves a comprehensive assessment of the Philippines' existing semiconductor landscape, regulatory framework, and requirements in terms of workforce and infrastructure. This evaluation will serve as the foundation for potential joint initiatives geared towards advancing the semiconductor sector. The U.S. State Department has allocated $100 million per year over a 5-year period to promote semiconductor supply chain security and diversification. This commitment includes the development of new programs in collaboration with partner states. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. recently held discussions with officials of Vishay Siliconics in San Francisco, California, underlining the Philippines' commitment to enhancing the semiconductor industry.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, reported that an unusual number of Chinese militia vessels have been spotted swarming areas in the West Philippine Sea. AFP said that it noticed a growing presence of Chinese militia vessels at Iroquois Reef in the last 2 months. AFP disclosed the number grew from 10 to 15 last October to around 40 to 45 as of early November. National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea Commodore J. Tariela attributed the increased number of Chinese vessels to the strengthened efforts of the country to reach the BRP Sierra Madre for the regular resupply missions. Meanwhile, the United States reaffirmed its commitment to the Philippines, citing it would defend Manila's sovereign waters in the disputed waters.
Two earthquakes occurred in the Philippines today. The first one was a magnitude 4.0 earthquake that shook Cebu this Friday morning. The tectonic quake had a depth of 8 kilometers. Its epicenter was located in Tudela town. The second one was a magnitude 6.8 earthquake that hit Davao Occidental this Friday afternoon. PHIVOLCS said the epicenter of the earthquake was located southwest of Sarangani, Davao Occidental. The tremor is tectonic in origin and has a depth of 10 kilometers. PHIVOLCS did not issue a tsunami warning, but advised residents to be on alert for damage to property and aftershocks. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has instructed every relevant government agency to promptly take action to ensure the safety and well-being of those affected. We have our correspondent Ferdinand Libor for more details.
Yes, nang mag-alas 4:14 ng hapon kanina, nagyumanig ang malakas na lindol dito sa Davao Region. Kanina sa Davao City kung saan tayo nanoroon, nagyumanig ang lindol ay agad nagsilabasan ang mga tao na sa isang power light company. Maging ang mga mamimili at mga tendera sa mga mall ay agad nagsilabasan at pumunta sa ligtas na lugar. Nang mag-alas 5, pinapayagan na silang bumalik sa loob ng establishmento at sinara na ang mga tindahan at agad pinauwi ang mga empleyado dahil sa inaasahang aftershocks. Ayon sa PHIVOLCS, magnitude 6.8 ang tumama kanina na nakasentro sa Sarangani, Davao Occidental. Intensity 8 sa Glan, Sarangani, General Santos City, South Cotabato. Intensity 5 naman sa Matanaw, Davao del Sur, Maasim, Malapatan, Sarangani, Lixibo, Tampakan, Pulomolok, Banga, South Cotabato. Habang intensity 4 naman sa Kidapawan City, Cotabato, Magsaysay, Davao City, Davao del Sur, Don Marcelino, Jose Abad Santos, Davao Occidental, Kiamba, Maitom, Sarangani, Norola, Tantangan, South Cotabato, President Quirino, Libac, Isulan, Esperanza, Colombio, Calamansig at Sultan Kudarat. May napaulat na may bumagsak na crane sa isang construction site sa Batira, Davao City dahil sa lindol, ngunit patuloy pa itong kinompirma ng mga otoridad. Nasa kasalukuyan na rin bine-verify ang report na may isang nasawi dahil sa lindol. Sa ngayon, nagpayo na ang otoridad na maging mapamatyag sa inaasahang aftershocks. Iniinspeksyon na rin ng mga otoridad ang mga establishmento para matiyak ang gas mong itong gamitin sa araw na bukas. Mula dito sa Davao del Norte, Ferdinand Libor, Batapag.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferdinand Libor. Stay safe.
In other news, Department of Energy said oil products pump prices are expected to be stagnant or decrease by next week. According to the 4-day estimates, gasoline prices would remain the same or drop by 20 centavos per liter. Kerosene, on the other hand, is expected to stay the same or could decrease by 15 centavos per liter. Meanwhile, diesel prices are also expected to be still or dip by 30 centavos per liter. Coming up, the U.S. tanks cease to be effective in Ukraine's front lines. President Joe Biden sends out a stern warning against Israel's occupation plans. And Apple's $200 million Napoleon epic is set to debut in theaters next week. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Mga pagsisiwalat na ginawa ng programa, ating muling sisilipin. Mga eksklusibong storya na ating nakalap at nag-viral, ating balikan. Astig na mga riders, may mabuting puso hindi lamang sa mga kapwa riders, ngunit maging sa mga bata at nakatatandang tribo sa Palawan. Serbisyo publiko mula sa iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan. Hatid ng Responde sa lalawigan ng Palawan.
Thank you so much, Responde team, sa pag-set up ng ganitong klaseng event. Sana marami pa kayong matulungan.
Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi, ito ang Responde, mata ng mamamayan.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Two top Philippine government officials have called out United Nations Rapporteur Ian Fry, who wanted to abolish the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict. Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla and National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya dismissed the call of the UN Special Rapporteur in its effort to revoke the Anti-Terrorism Act. Remulla refuted that the establishment of the said task force is among the solutions to address communist insurgency in the country. He added that the UN Rapporteur should not tell the Philippine government what to do with the said task force, asserting the country's independence in solving its issues. Meanwhile, Senator Ronald De La Rosa said that Fry was apparently misinformed when he called for the abolition. De La Rosa defended the task force, citing they are not involved in armed confrontation with the enemies of the state.
A Japan-made raider began its operations in the Philippines to watch over the contested territory in the South China Sea. This is after the Philippines received a surveillance radar system from Japan as part of a major equipment transfer since the year 2014. Post-war defense export was lifted. According to its manufacturer, the new warning and control radar system can detect multiple fighter jets and ballistic missiles. In 2020, the Mitsubishi Electric Corporation signed a contract with the Philippines Department of National Defense to procure 4 radars amounting to $100 million.
Vietnam has been ramping up its dredging and landfill work in the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea, creating another 330 acres of land. The expansion, much larger than 120 acres it had created between 2012 and 2022, made Vietnam second only to China in terms of island buildup in the Spratlys. It said Vietnam's efforts have remained focused on dredging and landfill, with construction of infrastructure yet to begin. The sea is one of the world's most contested waterways, where more than $3 trillion of trade passes each year. China, Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam have lodged competing claims for some or all of the Spratly Islands. Despite this, China claims sovereignty over vast swaths of the South China Sea, including the areas where Vietnam has been building up islands. The recent expansion by Vietnam was the most noticeable at Bark Canada Reef, called Bai Tu Yen Chai in Vietnam, where they have been using cutters suction dredgers to accelerate dredging efforts. Vietnam's Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
Rescuers in India have made significant progress by drilling around 1/3 of the way into the debris of a collapsed highway tunnel where 40 workers have been trapped for 5 days. As of Friday morning, the drilling had penetrated about 24 meters of debris, with about 60 meters remaining to reach the trapped workers. Officials reported that the trapped men are in good condition, having been supplied with food, water, and oxygen through a pipe. Communication with the workers is maintained via walkie-talkies. The cause of the tunnel collapse is yet to be determined, but the region is known for its susceptibility to landslides, earthquakes, and floods. Authorities continue their efforts to safely rescue the trapped workers and investigate the incident.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky admits that tanks sent by the United States made no difference against Russia. Though he praised the quality of the 21 M1A1 Abrams donated by the U.S., Zelensky points out that these battle tanks are too few to become a game changer for Ukraine. Zelensky also confessed Ukraine is experiencing a shortage of NATO standard artillery shells due to a worldwide deficit. War experts say Ukraine has incorporated a diverse range of armored vehicles in its arsenal to fight Russian forces. But the anticipated counteroffensive, according to experts, did not yield the desired success.
Meanwhile, French judicial authorities issued international arrest warrants for Syrian President Bashar Assad for war crimes and crimes against humanity. In addition to President Assad, arrest warrants were issued for his brother Maher Assad, the commander of the 4th Armored Division, and 2 Syrian army generals, Ghassan Abbas and Bassam al-Hassan. Their rap sheet includes the use of chemical weapons on rebel-held Damascus suburbs back in 2013. In their absence, Damascus and its ally in Russia have pushed for the possibility that rebels carried out the chemical attack, but neither side has produced evidence to support their claims. The early morning assault in the Damascus suburb known as Ghouta was said to be the deadliest chemical weapon attack in Syria's 2.5-year civil war. There is evidence that provides clues about the attack, including videos of victims, including children, exhibiting what appear to be symptoms of nerve gas poisoning. The humanitarian group Doctors Without Borders says it has not been able to update its initial estimate of 355 killed because communication with those on the ground around Damascus is difficult. While he is unlikely to face trial in France, international warrants for a serving world leader are very rare and send a strong message about Assad's leadership at a time when some countries have welcomed him back into the diplomatic fold.
The conflict between Venezuela and Guyana over the ownership of the oil-rich region of Essequibo has been going on for many years. History says Great Britain seized Essequibo from Venezuela in the 19th century. In 1966, Venezuela and Guyana signed the Geneva Agreement to find a peaceful solution to the dispute. Still, the current borders established in 1899 should remain in force. But Venezuela argued that the Essequibo River naturally demarcates the border. It also rejected the 1899 verdict, saying it was null and void. Offshore developments by United States oil companies and reports of Washington's plans to deploy a military base in the region also jeopardize the possibility of the diplomatic solution. Last month, Venezuela announced a referendum on its territorial dispute with Guyana, which is scheduled for December 3. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro asserted the necessity of the referendum, saying they will not allow its resources to be stolen by American companies and that the people must have their say. In response, Guyanese authorities appealed to the UN International Court of Justice with an urgent demand to stop the referendum. Based on the latest assessment, oil deposits with reserves of about 11 billion barrels have been discovered in Essequibo. If this vast oil wealth is developed, analysts believe it will make Essequibo richer than Kuwait or UAE. Due to economic opportunities, financial policy analysts say Venezuela and Guyana will both assert their claim to Essequibo. But top international law experts believe only the UN International Court of Justice can stand in the way of the escalating tension between Venezuela and Guyana.
In other news, a New York appeals court judge temporarily lifted a gag order placed on former United States President Donald Trump in his civil fraud trial. Associate Justice David Friedman of the First Judicial Department ruled from the bench saying, considering the constitutional and statutory rights at issue, an interim stay is granted. The ruling came after Trump's lawyers asked for an emergency hearing, arguing the gag order infringed the former president's right to free speech. The gag order was imposed on Trump by Judge Arthur Engoron to prevent him from making any statements about court staff, citing security risks. Chris Keyes, an attorney for Trump, celebrated the stay order, saying that the Constitution and the First Amendment protected the former U.S. president.
The United States and China have agreed to resume their military communication after the recent Asia-Pacific Cooperation Summit in California. The meeting was the first in more than a year. During the summit, Biden said that the two nations were back to direct, open, and clear communications. This, however, later criticized by China's foreign ministry. To resume military communications, the two sides announced several other agreements in areas that have become roots of tension in previous times. These include taking steps to tackle the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. The two presidents also discussed about Taiwan. Xi urged Biden to stop arming Taiwan, citing that China's reunification with the island was unstoppable. Meanwhile, a senior U.S. official said that the American approach to the issue will remain unchanged. China severed military-to-military communications with the U.S. after that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visit in Taiwan. United States President Joe Biden signed a short-term government funding bill on Thursday, averting a potential government shutdown. The temporary bill will keep some federal government agencies funded until January 19 and others until February 2. But the signed spending bill did not provide additional funding to Israel, Ukraine, or the Indo-Pacific region. There is also no provision for funding humanitarian aid for Palestinians or increased border security. Top U.S. officials have warned there could be serious consequences if Washington fails to send more aid to Ukraine. Legal experts say the goal is to give the U.S. Congress more time to negotiate long-term spending bills.
U.S. President Joe Biden has emphasized to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that occupying Gaza would be a significant mistake. Biden stated that he believes a two-state solution is the only viable way to bring an end to the Israel-Palestinian conflict during a news conference in San Francisco. He also reiterated Israeli claims about the presence of a military headquarters in Gaza, asserting that Hamas is committing war crimes by locating such a facility beneath a hospital. Netanyahu earlier in the month outlined post-war objectives for Gaza, including demilitarization, de-radicalization and reconstruction. He indicated the need to establish a civilian government in Gaza after the conflict, emphasizing there is no plan to occupy the territory despite differing views on its current status.
Germany has proposed the idea that the United Nations could assume control in Gaza after the Israel-Hamas war concludes. The proposal is part of ongoing discussions regarding the conflict, including strategies for humanitarian aid and ceasefire. However, the feasibility of the idea is doubted by both the Palestinians and some EU diplomats. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken suggested that an effective and revitalized Palestinian Authority should ultimately govern Gaza, but details on how to achieve this remain unclear. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had previously stated that his country would retain overall security responsibility for Gaza, a stance opposed by the EU and the United States. Blinken has cautioned against Israel reoccupying Gaza after the conflict with Hamas concludes.
The United Nations Human Rights Chief highlights allegations of serious rights violations in the Israel-Hamas war. He is calling for full accountability, justice, and truth-telling. Naya James has more.
In Geneva, UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk says multiple and profound breaches of international humanitarian law demand rigorous investigation and full accountability. Turk says he has been at the disposal of both Palestinians and Israelis to find a way out of this current crisis.
Accountability, justice, and truth-telling, including on the basis of when you have conflicting narratives, you need an investigation that is independent in order to make sure that we can actually get out of otherwise a polarized, totally binary view of what is happening or what happened.
Turk does not name Israel or Hamas. He speaks, however, after a visit last week to the Middle East. There he says both sides were committing war crimes in a conflict that has left thousands dead. Israel has vowed to eradicate Hamas in retaliation for the attacks of October 7. Israel says Hamas's attack killed 1,200 people, most of them civilians. Hamas also took 239 people hostage. Authorities say among them are elderly people and young children. On the other hand, the Hamas-run health ministry says Israel's retaliation in Gaza has killed more than 11,500 people, many of whom are civilians, thousands of them children. Naya James from Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Global conflicts have driven unprecedented orders in the BAE systems. From Europe, here's Love and Season for the details.
British military arms giant BAE Systems say year 2023 has seen unprecedented additional contracts of £430 million from the UK government. The reason for this? BAE Systems say global conflicts fueled the increase in demand for munitions.
So since the summer up to today, we've announced new contract orders of about 430 million, principally around our 155 ammunition, but also around 30mm and some of our small arms products as well.
Steve Cardew, Business Development Director of Munitions at BAE Systems, says since the conflict in Ukraine, the demands for their artillery shells necessitated an 8-fold increase in production. He explains that if the news reports suggest that 20,000 artillery shells are being fired per day in Ukraine, BAE and their NATO industry partners need to respond quickly. Experts say the demand for more weapons is sparking fears of shortages. The situation also caused the prices of some supplies to soar. NATO's standard 155mm artillery shells had cost governments about $2,100 apiece before the Russia and Ukraine conflict. But now the price of those shells is reportedly about $8,400 apiece. War analysts say the war between Israel and Hamas and the conflict in Sudan also put upward pressure on weapons demand. In Asia, Japan also announced it will pump up its military defense. Foreign policy experts believe the increasing coercive pressure by China towards Taiwan, as well as Beijing's harassment against the Philippines, will likely escalate. With these escalating conflicts, military equipment companies are now ramping up their production to meet their deadlines.
We'll have to go from 3 shifts in 2023 up to 4 shifts in 2024. So that's 4 shifts, 24/7 running. So we've done that once before, but only for a short period of time. But this time, I think it's going to be for long term.
Love and Season from London, United Kingdom for Matana Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Apple has coughed up another huge pile of cash to make Napoleon the latest epic that will hit cinemas around the world next week, with Joaquin Phoenix donning the tricorn hat of the French emperor. From Europe, here's Catherine Messina for the details.
Apple has coughed up another huge pile of cash to make Napoleon the latest epic that will hit cinemas around the world next week, with Joaquin Phoenix donning the tricorn hat of the French emperor. The budget of close to $200 million has paid for some gargantuan battle scenes from Austerlitz to Waterloo, though the British director Ridley Scott also focuses on the intimate side of Bonaparte's life, particularly his fraught love affair with his wife Josephine. It is Apple's latest attempt to earn some Hollywood prestige following Martin Scorsese's equally pricey Killers of the Flower Moon. According to Scott, the tech company took the risk, as both films may struggle to recoup the investment at the box office. Though for a company that generates revenues of nearly $1 billion a day, it is affordable PR. The 85-year-old mastermind behind classics like Alien and Gladiator described the opportunity of doing a historical epic with many superhero movies going around as a big challenge. The 2-hour 39-minute Napoleon traces the fortunes of France's most famous historical figure, from his rise among the ashes of the French Revolution through his incredible military victories to his eventual defeat and exile. Bonaparte was an obvious choice of subject to Scott, as there are 10,400 books on him. However, Napoleon remains a divisive figure in France, lauded for modernizing the state and his strategic genius, vilified for re-establishing slavery, codifying sexism and leaving millions dead through his warmongering ambition. Some early audiences in France, like historian Patrice Gueneffi, called it a caricature of an ambitious Corsican ogre and very anti-French. Scott is not the first director to take the hit on the subject. Abel Gantz's 1927 silent classic Napoleon runs to 7 hours, and another famed British director, Stanley Kubrick, directed The Shining, prior to his death in 1999. This is Catherine Messina from London, United Kingdom for Matana Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, the Iglesia ni Cristo, through Care for Humanity, provides aid to immigrants in Montreal, Canada. The World Health Organization is warning us about global warming. And all the nominations for this year's Game of the Year are in. Matana Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
The entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well in the country, and Open for Business has witnessed yet again a few of our MSMEs to be feted for their dedication, passion, achievements, and sustainable practices. We speak to a few of these awardees to discover their inspiring stories as recipients of the first Southeast Asian Premier Business and Achiever Award. How do you stand out in the market?
First, quality of materials that we used. Second, after-sales relationships.
Laging isipin mo ano pa ang pwede kong ma-improve sa negosyo ko, sa services ko.
Kaya nga po tayo nagbibigay ng parangal sa mga negosyanteng Pilipino. We want to inspire people na gusto magtayo ng negosyo.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
The Iglesia ni Cristo has offered help to immigrants in Montreal, Canada by providing food packages and other aid. Laura Ibanez reports.
June 12th. I enter Canada. I don't know anybody. I'm still in search of work.
Beverlyn is one of many immigrants who are striving to build a new life in a foreign country. But barriers like language have become an obstacle for settling in her new home.
Because everywhere I apply, they will ask me I can't speak French. I can't speak French. It's very difficult because of no work. So
Quebec, Canada is home to 500,000 non-permanent residents like Beverlyn who struggle to adapt to the French language barrier and other challenges of immigrant integration.
The way of doing things on this side, the way of doing things in Africa is different. It's somehow difficult.
But time came where an event she attended would help her begin to settle in her new surroundings in Quebec.
Make me feel lively. I'm so happy today to see people taking things and carrying it.
The Care for Humanity project, aimed at providing for those in need, has come to help immigrants throughout Montreal, Quebec. In partnership with the Church of Christ, the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation brought immediate assistance here at the Olympia Reception Halls located in Montreal's West Island. Beverlyn, among many others, were impacted by the timely help.
It will help me a lot because some of the things in the bag I don't have it, or I know. It will help me a lot, and my friend that is in the house with me.
Distributed were hundreds of care packages from the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, containing noodles, soups, and hygiene products like shampoo, toothpaste, and others. Impacting people even like Gabriel, originally from Ghana, now here in Canada for only 3 weeks, and for the first time experiencing outreach of the Church of Christ for those in need.
Have you been to any place before? Well, this is my first time to come here to see all this. I'm going to use it for myself. Even I'm going to share to my brothers who don't have food. I'm going to share it to them. I'm very grateful. Because Church of Christ, they take care about everybody. Church of Christ is a very, very good church all over the world.
Not only we were able to share material blessings to our fellow, but also we were able to introduce to them our faith as members of the Church of Christ. It is because of our love to our fellow men, and most of all, love to our Almighty.
We're going home with a gift. It's not only a physical gift, but it's also a spiritual gift. And I want to say thank you. I'm excited to be here.
The people of this organization, I want to tell them very big thank you for what they did, and let God continue to guide them to do more for the needed people. Thank you. I want to say very big thank you to you for doing this wonderful things in our life. Let God continue to bless you. Thank you again.
Ibanez, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, worldwide, lingap sa mamamayan special coverage.
More than 500,000 South Korean students wrote the crucial National University Entrance Exam Thursday, and this test is not taken lightly by students and authorities alike. Thomas Likeness has that story.
This is how seriously the country takes the 9-hour exam. To minimize distractions, the government halted flights. During the listening portion of the English test, Seoul's Transportation Ministry banned takeoffs and landings, except for emergency situations, and planes had to maintain an altitude higher than 3,000 meters. The 35-minute measure affected about 90 flights. Now, authorities also delayed the opening of public buildings and offices by an hour, and that was to ease traffic congestion. Police cars and regional government officials stood by to help students running late to reach their exam sites on time. So why all the fuss? I mean, it's just an exam, isn't it? Well, no. You see, this test is crucial for securing a spot in top universities and is also considered key to elevated social status, lucrative careers, and even marriage prospects. And that puts students in the country's ultra-competitive education system under enormous pressure. Pressure that's blamed for teenage depression and a suicide rate that is among the highest in the world. In an effort to reduce some of the stress, the government has made this year's exam easier. So-called killer questions have been removed. Now, killer questions are those notoriously difficult questions that quiz students on material that's not covered in public schools. That gives those with access to private tutoring an advantage. But even as the exam gets easier, nearly half of Korean youth aged 13 to 18 say their biggest worry is education. Looking to the future, if South Korean society wants to ease the pressure on youth, there needs to be a cultural shift in how educational excellence is perceived. Thomas I. Likeness from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The head of the World Health Organization says global warming should be considered a public health issue. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus made the comments on the heels of a new report on the health risk of climate changes. Danica Lee reports.
All over the globe, people are struggling with the effects of heat waves and drought. The Lancet Countdown annual report predicts nearly 5 times more people will die due to extreme heat in the coming decades. As well, prolonged droughts will put millions more at risk of starvation. The researchers say the dry weather will see disease-carrying mosquitoes spread even further, and health systems will struggle to cope with the burden. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says global warming cannot be ignored.
Achieving the Paris Agreement target to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius is a public health imperative. WHO joins the report's call for transformative action to reduce air pollution and increase health equity.
But despite calls for global action, the Lancet report notes that energy-related carbon emission hit new highs last year. It singles out massive government subsidies and private bank investments in fossil fuels. Danica Lee from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A family outing ended in tragedy when a Venezuelan woman was struck and killed by lightning in a beach in Colombia. In a footage, 34-year-old Freilanis Rivas was fatally struck by a bolt while standing near the shore of Boquilla Beach in the province of Cartagena. Paramedics responded to the scene and rushed the victim to a hospital where they spent 45 minutes trying to resuscitate Rivas. She was later pronounced dead at the hospital. All beachgoers have reportedly asked to clear the area after authorities issued a severe weather alert earlier that day. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention data shows that at least 40 million lightning strikes hit the ground in the United States each year. The chances of being struck by lightning each year are less than 1 in a million, and at least 90% of the victims do survive.
Meanwhile, a horrendous bus crash in northern India has left dozens of people dead. The accident happened Wednesday in a mountainous region in Kashmir state. Bobby Soriano reports.
Officials say the accident claimed at least 37 lives, and there are fears that even more will perish. At least 18 others are in hospital, some of them in critical condition. The bus apparently skidded off the road and plunged 250 meters down into a gorge. Accidents are common on India's vast network of roads, which are often poorly maintained. A World Bank report says the country accounts for 11% of the global road death toll, despite having just 1% of the world's vehicles. Bobby Soriano from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A tragic end for another garment worker in Bangladesh. The protester died from injuries sustained during the demonstrations earlier this month. Jay Suarez has the details.
Bangladeshi police say the death takes the numbers killed in the protests to 4. Hundreds of Bangladeshi garment workers rallied demanding fair wages. This after dismissing a pay offer as too small, and the death toll from the violent protests that erupted last month rose to 4. Bangladesh is rocked by the worst labor unrest in a decade, with tens of thousands of workers clashing with police. Bangladesh's 3,500 garment factories account for around 85% of its $55 billion in annual exports. These factories supply many of the world's top brands, including Levi's, Zara, and H&M. However, conditions are dire for many of the sector's 4 million workers whose monthly pay, until recently, started at 8,300 taka or $75. A government-appointed panel raised the sector's wage by 56.25% on Tuesday. It is now at 12,500 taka a month or $113. The garment workers rejected the hike. Since the pay offer, their protests escalated. At least 70 factories were ransacked. Jay Suarez from Mantanang Agila International. Trusted Connected on Point.
And gamers, heads up as the nominations for the Game Awards 2023 are out. JD Mahinay for the details.
This year's Game Awards is much awaited as nominees spanning across 112 game titles are trying to be featured for the most prestigious award. The Game Awards is an annual award ceremony honoring feats in the video game industry since 2014. The nominees were chosen by an international jury of more than 100 global media and influencer outlets. Meanwhile, winners at the Game Awards will be determined by a combined vote of 90% of the said jury, along with 10% from fan votes. Early this week, nominees for the most awaited award, the Game of the Year, were announced.
For Game of the Year at the Game Awards are Alan Wake 2, developed by Remedy Entertainment, Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 from Insomniac Games, Resident Evil 4 from Capcom, Super Mario Bros. Wonder from Nintendo, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom from Nintendo.
Remedy Entertainment's survival horror game Alan Wake 2 and Larian Studios' Baldur's Gate 3 have led the pack with 8 nominations each. This includes awards for Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Score and Music, and other more. The award ceremony will be streamed live in Los Angeles on December 7. JD Mahinay reporting for Mantanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Civit AI, a free AI tool, has sparked controversy with its recent introduction of a feature called Bounties, which incentivizes deepfakes. The free AI platform Civit AI has sparked outrage after it has introduced a new feature dubbed Bounties, which is a monetized system that rewards users with virtual currency for creating highly realistic deepfakes of real individuals. The virtual currency called Buzz is encouraging users to compete to make the best deepfake, resulting in an influx of requests for deepfakes of celebrities and social media influencers, with a disturbing number of non-consensual pornographic images, leading to an invasion of privacy. The state of Virginia recently amended its revenge porn laws to penalize deepfake creators with up to a year in jail. But this does not seem to faze Civit AI. While Civit AI maintains that bounty shouldn't be used for non-consensual AI-generated sexual content of real individuals, it still allows sexual images of public figures and non-sexual images of ordinary people.
Meta said it will allow users to delete or deactivate their Threads app while keeping their linked Instagram account. Originally, an Instagram account was required to sign up for Threads, but despite early success, many users were frustrated that it was impossible to delete Threads without losing their Instagram apps. Instagram boss Ada Mosseri said they made the changes based on feedback from their Threads community. He also revealed that a second update is coming soon. Meta users will be allowed to switch off a recent feature that sees Threads posts appear on the feeds of Facebook and Instagram.
SpaceX is set to make a second attempt to launch a Starship rocket. It is scheduled to blast off Saturday from a launch pad in Texas. Crisan Fergata reports.
Starship rocket's second attempt had been scheduled for today, but SpaceX CEO Elon Musk pushed it back 24 hours because of technical issues. The Starship rocket system is the most powerful rocket ever built. The first test in April ended in a massive explosion 4 minutes after liftoff from the Starbase launch site in Boca Chica, Texas. The rocket disintegrated into a ball of fire and crashed into the Gulf of Mexico. The crash sent a dust cloud over a town several kilometers away. After a months-long investigation, regulators gave SpaceX the green light on Wednesday to try again. Conservation groups are opposing the launch, saying SpaceX has not carried out sufficient environmental assessments. Crisan Fergata from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, a hiker's best friend stays by his side in a tragic tale. The Las Vegas Grand Prix is ready to kick it to full gear. And Hunger Games franchise continues with a surprisingly good prequel. Catch more news and sports and entertainment when we return.
Hello everyone, this is Aubrey Miles. Nandito na ako sa Lutong Dazad. So lahat ng lulutuin namin, puro eggs tayo. So lulutuin namin Korean pancakes, kajon, vegetarian fritters, mushroom and shrimp fried eggs, at crispy seafood noodles. So abangan niya dahil pampalakas ng muscles, pampadami. Every Saturday, 11 a.m. So see you guys!
Dear Boss Leng, ako po si Exxon at sure ako na hindi po kayo matutuwa sa kwento ko.
Bigyan natin ng chance si Exxon.
Nagsiselfone ka lang pala. Labas mo na to, ha?
Naglalaro ako yun.
Naglalaro ka? Eh, bakit nakabukas ang TV?
Bakit din yung suspect?
Sana nga.
Buti na lang. Hindi ko napalitaan yung kinakay na butanding.
Love, Boss Leng, and Tali. Tuwing linggo, alas 6 ng gabi dito lang sa Net 25.
Dominican Prime Minister Roosevelt's Carrot announces a plan to establish the world's first sperm whale reserve off the Caribbean islands coast. The reserve will prohibit commercial fishing in large ships in a crucial area that serves as both a nursing and feeding ground for these endangered mammals. Sperm whales boast one of the broadest global distributions among marine mammal species, being observed in deep waters near the Arctic and Antarctic, as well as around the equator. However, the waters off Dominica stand out as one of the rare locations where these whales can be found consistently throughout the year. The new reserve will strictly forbid commercial fishing activities, but sustainable artisanal fishing will be permitted as long as it poses no threat to the welfare of the whales. The reserve will also allow tourists to observe and swim with the whales from boats, with regulations in place to ensure the responsible management of visitor numbers.
Meanwhile, in a remarkable tale of resilience, a loyal dog named Finny, who survived more than 10 weeks in the Colorado mountains after her owner succumbed to hypothermia, is now gaining her health and weight back. Rich Moore, a 71-year-old hiker from Colorado, set out with his Jack Russell Terrier Finny to climb Blackhead Peak on the 19th of August. Unfortunately, he did not return home. Moore's body and a protective Finny were discovered by a hunter in the San Juan Mountains of southwestern Colorado on the 30th of October. During Finny's ordeal, she lost about half her body weight and her ribs were visible. However, less than 3 weeks later, Finny is making an impressive recovery. She has gained almost all her lost weight back and her strength is nearly restored to its previous levels. Vinny's survival story has turned her into a local legend on the hiking trails around Pagusa Springs, earning her the nickname the Miracle Dog.
Formula One enters a new phase this weekend as the sport brings its high-octane show to the neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip. In what's arguably the biggest ever event for the sport, Formula One comes to the heart of the world-famous Las Vegas Boulevard, commonly known as the Strip. The track features 17 corners and runs to 3.8 miles, with a barrier-lined layout wrapping around the most iconic area of Vegas. The start line leads on to the straight-down Cova Lane, followed by turns around MSG Sphere and down Sands Avenue. Drivers will pass then the Venetian Resort before they turn into the Las Vegas Strip, before it turns to the final straight on East Harmon Avenue. Las Vegas is the third American Grand Prix of the season, adding to the Miami Grand Prix and the more established U.S. Grand Prix in Austin, Texas. The race itself is scheduled to start at 10 p.m. local time on Saturday night, where the reigning world champion Max Verstappen looks to add another win to his record-breaking tally of 17 wins in a season. The Hunger Games franchise continues with a prequel featuring a brand new cast, while the new Trolls movie set to hit the theaters is bound to tickle the inner child in you. Stephanie Mayo tells us more.
Head on to the Cineplex and take your pick between these two entertaining movies. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The prequel to the original The Hunger Games trilogy, the film is set 64 years before Katniss Everdeen volunteered as tribute. The film is focused on the backstory of Coriolanus Snow, who would become the tyrannical president of Panem during post-war Capitol. Snow is assigned to mentor a tribute from District 12, a musician named Lucy Gray, played by Rachel Zegler. Tense, visually gorgeous with a thrilling score, plus Tom Blythe's scene-stealing performance as the young Coriolanus make this prequel a must-watch. Definitely one of the best entries in the Hunger Games franchise. Trolls Band Together, the sequel to Trolls World Tour and the third installment in the Trolls franchise, comes Trolls Band Together, the jukebox musical comedy featuring the voice cast ensemble led by Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake. In the film, Poppy and Branch race to rescue Branch's brother Floyd and attempt to reunite Branch's brothers who once made up the boy band Brozone. Packed with energetic pop tunes with eye-candy visuals, Trolls Band Together is the perfect movie for families with small kids. Now showing in cinemas near you. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Ricky, it's a Friday night
for the movie.
I know, same here. And to end the week, here's a quote from Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, also known as Bad Bunny. You don't have the same mentality as you did 5 years ago, even 1 year. People are always changing, and I believe that everyone deserves space to change and for people to recognize their change.
Reminds me that the only thing constant in this world is change. So if there's change, I think we have to embrace it, but be ready as well for the changes.
And also, if people make mistakes, we are not to judge them, knowing that there's always a chance for them to fix things, pick things up, and learn from their experiences and make things better tomorrow.
That's
actually
correct.
Today.
Today is the best day.
Today's the best day. It being Friday.
And it being a Friday, happy weekend, everyone.
Happy weekend, everyone.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Ricky Matay.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.